Today we're going to be covering episode 3 of season 3 of Strange New Worlds. I've got a lot to say about this episode. There's an awful lot actually packed into 50 minutes of an episode. I've watched this one a couple of times now, and each time I've watched it, I've appreciated it a little bit more. So I'm going to be very interested to see the reactions of people who have watched it once and are maybe watching the ups and downs now. Maybe someone who's watched it a couple of times before they've had a chance to watch this video. I want to know if it's been a bit of a build, as it was for me. Probably now, that's left people go like, oh wow, he hated this episode. Not at all, not at all. There is an awful lot to discuss, which we're going to do in just a moment. Before we go on, I want to thank everyone who has been watching these ups and downs videos. It feels weird that we're only in week 2, but it's already episode 3 of Strange New Worlds. If you would be so kind, please make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button as well. It really does make a difference. And thank you so much. We've had a little bit of a boost in subs over the last while. If you would like your very own TrekCulture merchandise as well, like the t-shirt I am wearing, there is a link directly under this video too. Will you join me as we go through all of the ups and downs for season 3, episode 3, Shuttle to Kenfori. My first up of the week goes to the fact that there's a bit of a banger of an opening. Pike with his captain's log walking in and Batel's on the floor. Le quoi? Because of course the last we saw, she was maybe in remission? Might be the best way to describe her Gorn DNA from those Gorn infections that she got there in Hegemony Part 1. Now it did look like things were going well. Thank you very much, Una, for your lovely Illyrian blood. Much appreciated. But the Gorn appear to be, or at least on a, cellular level, stronger than, say, Illyrians. So it seems to be bouncing back. She's out for the count, so Pike brings her straight to sickbay. And this sets up our dilemma of this episode, which is how do we save Batel? Can we save Batel? What up, my dudes? It's your broski Chad Tarka. You know how I travel to chase my storms, and you know what an awesome time I have doing it. But you know what's not awesome? Constantly trying to connect to my data plan at all the different places I end up. I capture a great wave, but I can't share it with the Legisaurus pack home. Gorge little tornado, not gorge upload time. And I was thinking about pulling my hair out, but then along comes Saley and boomaroom, no problemo. Saley is the one-stop eSIM that's got you covered. You've only got to download the Saley app once, use our code TrekCulture, and you're in for a smooth ride, my dudes. You're gonna skip the queues at the space dock. No waiting to buy local SIMs for you. It's totes compatible with Android and iPhone. It's got security that'd make Odo melt. And it's got regional and global plans. We're talking more than 200 destinations, weatherinos. Now, if there's one thing a Ryzian like me knows, it's covering yourself for wherever you end up. And that's what I've got with Saley. Download the app today by using the link in the description of this video. And don't forget that if you use our code TrekCulture at checkout, you grab yourselves a sweet 15% discount on top. How is that for affordable confidence? Radical. I gotta chase up some stellar storms now, Trekadoos, but you can catch my updates thanks to Saley. Thanks, Saley. Tarka out. So we've got a great, one of those round scenes where you've got Spock and Benga, Chapel, Batel, and Pike are all sitting there in sickbay going, what do we do? And we learn very quickly that a conversation clearly has happened when Pike wasn't in the room. He is brought up to speed that there is one thing that should be able to help Batel, the so-called Chimera Blossom. Now, wouldn't you know it, it's only found on one planet, the planet of Kenfori, or at least it's so rare that the only one they know of is the planet of Kenfori. That, wouldn't you know it, happens to be in restricted space. So it's a bit like the neutral zone, a bit like the DMZ. No Klingons or Federation are allowed to travel in there with the cessation of the Federation-Klingon War. You know, the whole first season of Star Trek Discovery. First season of Star Trek Discovery. We're going to see something else from that. The funny thing for me, before anything else in this episode happens, the funny thing for me is that the only people who tend to respect border treaties in all of Star Trek are the Federation. Think about how many times, for whatever reason, you'd be close to the Federation side of the neutral zone border, and then boom, a Romulan bird of prey would decloak. Inside the neutral zone. Nothing ever happened to them. Like, don't do that, that's bold. They're violating the treaty. We gonna do anything about this? No, okay, no. The Klingons, we had things like, the entire Kobayashi Maru sequence. I said to Kobayashi Maru in one of the previous episodes, where was the automatic down? You know what? Thank you for following the channel. I appreciate that joke. I appreciate it. Then, of course, you have as well the Cardassian border with the Federation, the entire DMZ over there. And well, we had pretty much DS9 span off from the fact that Cardassians didn't really give a plot about it. So you have your hand-wringing here about do we go into the zone or not. Spock and Mbenga are the first to say, we will go, we will get this blossom, and Pike says, well, I'm going to put one addition to your plan. And this whole time, Batel is sitting there going, yeah, I knew exactly what was about to happen. I knew he was going to say, I'm going to go instead of you. I love that there is a confidence in Melanie Scrofano's performance as Batel. Remember, she's also a captain. So not just are these a group of people discussing her health diagnosis here in sickbay, but she is also the only person in the room who holds the same rank as Pike, who is probably going to be the problem voice in the room. I guess at this point he's not a problem voice, but he's certainly the I will amend your plan voice. There is a great little moment where they joke about, they have to be caught. And Mbenga goes, you're insulting me, Captain. I never get caught. This is the first example of many in this episode of the friendship between Pike and Mbenga, and I want to give it an up there because I loved the inclusion of it. The deal is done, the plan is made, they're going to go to Kenfori, but they have to do it in as covert a way as possible, meaning they can't just rock up in the Enterprise. So, shuttle, perfect. They're going to get the shuttle to the edge of, it's like an asteroid belt. So to do that, you need a bloody good pilot who can get the shuttle as close as before Pike and Mbenga then take the shuttle the rest of the way. Enter Erica Ortegas. And there is a great scene there on the bridge between La'an, between Ortegas and between Uhura, and of course with Una as well, where they commend Erica's flying skills, about how she was missed on the bridge and up. I love it because of how natural it all feels. While yes, between Hegemony Part 2 and between Wedding Bell Blues, we're told that there was a 3-month gap. And in fact, in our recent podcast episode, we discussed how some of Ortegas' storyline seems to have been somewhat almost skipped over. Now, of course, we do close Wedding Bell Blues on the fact that she is clearly still suffering some PTSD. But going into Wedding Bell Blues, her hand is fine, her torso is fine. We sort of skipped over some of the healing. I think we see this in her actions in this episode, her healing journey, and much like any healing journey, how it goes forward, side to side, back, up, down, back again, as healing does. But my roundabout point at the core of it all is these are at least a unified group of colleagues, of friends, and when one of them was missing, it affected the rest of them. I really like how Strange New Worlds does that, and the performances they really sell this for me. In a way, I'm sort of extending this point with my next up, but Pike and Mbenga talking about, remember that time on Zeta Borealis, I think it was the cigars the night before we were this feels like a real relationship. I'm commending the writing, the acting, the direction here. One of the things I enjoy so much about Strange New Worlds is how well their ensemble cast is used, and this is one of the great examples of it so far this season. My first down of the week comes to, it's something Pike says that just kind of caught me. They discover this Klingon warning beacon. While they discuss what could it be warning us against, Pike says, it doesn't matter. This is Marie's only chance. Well, Pike, it does matter. And not just because I now know what's coming, but I get that it's Marie's only chance. Don't worry, we're not turning back or anything, but it doesn't matter seems reckless to the point of, that's endangering both of you, isn't it? They have the Klingon language in the Universal Translator. You know, surely they could have taken the few minutes to decrypt what this thing was saying. Now, whether it would have said, zombies, or something else, it would have at least given them the tools to go in a bit less blind. Okay, yes, then we wouldn't have had some of the things that we had in the episode. I'm aware of that. But if you're gonna include a warning beacon, you need to kind of address these things as well. Still, Pike and Mbenga, once we're down on the surface, jokes about fly fishing, and while Mbenga does say, look, there's no life on this planet, there's plenty of flora, but there's no fauna. Would that there was fish in there. Again, is this two ups for the same thing? Yeah, I make the rules, I'm gonna do it anyway. Here's another up for Pike and Mbenga in this episode. They feel like real friends. They feel like they have had years of experiences together, and that this is, as serious as it is, there is a hopeful way that they're interacting that feels like this is also something they've done 50 times before. If not this specific thing, then they've been on these kind of missions. And I really, really like that. And it's something that it's actually not as common in Star Trek as it might seem. Like, you have things like Kirk and Spock, sure, have a lot of kind of interactions like this. If not, you know, the you know, shared laughter and everything, there's still this, we've done this 100 times before. But there isn't always lots of examples of it, so it's really nice when you get, with a captain, sorry, I should be more specific, between a captain and a member of his crew. You had a bit with Janeway, of course, but this is nice, this stands out. And it also goes toward helping remind me of when this is set. This is, as we remember from last week, the centennial of the Federation. This is only 100 years after Archer, so we're still just before the time of Kirk and Spock. We're nowhere near the time of Picard, Sisko, and Janeway, etc. There is more of a frontier. You would, I think, have more of a congenial relationship with your crew. Is that the right description? Maybe it isn't the right description, but I feel like they're mates. And it comes across so well here, and it helps me kind of believe that the Enterprise isn't 5 minutes from Earth the whole time. Last week was set at Starbase 1. Like, that's fine. This isn't. We get a Klingon skeleton that Mbenga thinks, although there is a phaser blast, it looks like it might have been, you know, kind of desecrated by an animal. It looks old, it looks weathered, it looks scary, and what it is the first proper example of the fact that this episode is horror. Good, effective horror works with characters you care about. Because why would I care if random teen the third is in a perilous situation? Look, I know random teen the third in a perilous situation has kept such franchises as Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween. I'm a massive Michael Myers fan, by the way, so I'm, you know, but it's kept those franchises alive for as long as they have. But for me, effective horror is when bad things happen to people you care about. And I care about the characters in this episode. So straight away, this grisly discovery and the reminder that there is no life readings at all on this world is a good indicator that Pike and Mbenga have walked into a situation they really don't want to be in. This is sort of a fun moment where, you know, we have to look for this one flower, but thankfully, thanks to Chapel's research, we know that the flower is in this research tower. So it's like, oh, okay, well, at least we don't need to search the whole planet for it, which I like. That logic works for me. So they walk in and they're looking for, oh, handy, there it is. Excellent. This looks like this could be the easiest away mission of all time. However, down. So just as Pike is about to reach for the flower, Mbenga says, wait, don't touch it, and quickly puts on his PPE and covers his face and explains that there could be a toxic thing. Why would you not have told him that beforehand? Why would you send someone in bare clothed to something that you know could be toxic? Man. I have to say though, that Chimera Blossom looks gorgeous. They take a couple of examples of them and then happy out. The room that they're in, clearly an old, overgrown science lab. Yeah, looks good. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, it could have used a couple of Tucker tubes, but sure, listen, you can't have everything. Up in orbit, they pick up what looks like a little EM blip on their sensors. And this triggers something in Erica. And she says, can we do another sensor sweep? And thank goodness she did, because it's a Klingon battle cruiser. Now, up, because good catch, Erica. I like as well that this is how they address cloaking technology in Strange New Worlds, because Discovery into Strange New Worlds, into kind of the original series and beyond, we all know that there are some continuity issues. In theory, and again I'm underlining in theory, Klingons got cloaking technology from Romulans, which they did after their short alliance off-screen around the time of the original series. That's when, for example, in like the Enterprise incident, the Romulan battle cruiser is shown as part of their fleet. We also know that if we go back to the Battle of the Binary Stars and the Vulcan Hello, or the Vulcan Hello, the Battle of the Binary Stars, T'Kuvma had a cloaking device aboard the sarcophagus ship. So technically, Klingons already had cloaking technology, and that's fine. That doesn't really break continuity, it sort of bends it a little bit, because again, that wasn't explicitly stated on screen. Here, it's sort of a best of both worlds. EM field could just refract. One of those things. Screws with sensors. And therefore, it's both, Schrodinger's battlecruiser is both cloaked and not cloaked. I like it. Here I am over-explaining it, I know, but I quite like how they get around that, because that then, to me, explains if I want to say it's not cloaked, ergo Erica can just change her settings and find a cloaked battlecruiser. Great, okay, that works for me. Then if it is cloaked, well, maybe we've figured out some frequencies. It works for me. This is the kind of stuff I agonize over. I love my job. Speaking of that battlecruiser, by the way, and this is a great episode for this, but oh my god, how stunning are those shots of the Klingon battlecruiser in this episode. Up, you know me, you know how I feel about ship porn. It is gorgeous. We get some lovely panning shots of it as well, especially as the Klingon raider descends from the battlecruiser. Do you remember I mentioned Discovery? That then takes off and heads down toward the planet. This is a good looking episode. Down on the planet, the Klingons have discovered the shuttle. It's grim, but it is kind of funny where it's like, maybe they don't know we're here. They destroy the shuttle. They know we're here. But this is after another horrible scene where Pike, in removing his Chimera Blossom, finds the remains of a human leg that has been seemingly devoured by something. We're getting the sort of the standard horror movie creaks and groans in the haunted house, but we haven't actually seen anything yet. Now we know Klingons are about to arrive, which they then do. There's a couple of nice, certainly visual and audio nods to earlier Star Trek, particularly, I mean, I'll discuss this in Station Observations, but particularly one of the films gets a nod in this scene as well. We get introduced to 3 Klingons who walk in, or should I say a Klingon and 2 red shirts, and it's about to get real. But there is one critical thing here. So Mbenga and Pike duck behind some crates, and Pike says, "We shoot first." Up. That's what I call learning from the past. The entire impetus for Burnham's actions that precipitated the Battle of the Binary Stars was that the Vulcans shot first, which is how they had relations with the Klingons. By not firing first, as Georgiou was insisting that Starfleet doesn't fire first, a war broke out because the Klingons believed, well, you're just weak. Why would we respect you? Pike has obviously learned from that. The fact that their phasers are set to stun makes no difference. They're proving from the jump that they're not just going to sit there and wait for the Klingons to come to them. Really, really like this inclusion in the episode. Up on the ship, things are not going so well for Marie. She is beginning to scream in discomfort because things are accelerating with this Gorn DNA. We get another nice little moment from Nurse Gamble, who was named on Instagram by Chris Myers, who was playing the part. So, hi Nurse Gamble, nice to see you. Who is about to have a bit of a difficult afternoon, but Spock arrives and gets inadvertently one of the funniest lines of the episode. Captain Batel, I understand that your discomfort is increased. You think? Up. He recommends a mind meld, and yeah, I see it. I see it. He talks about how, you know, Vulcans have practiced pain relief through meditation. You know, it's an ancient practice. Yeah, okay. So they do their mind meld. Marie's totally on board. We get flashes of what seems to be Gorn consciousness inside her. Now, it's just vague enough that it's not that it's one Gorn inside her, you know, it's not like it's a split spirit kind of thing, but certainly Spock absorbs part of it. We see through his eyes seem to be through a Gorn eyes, and you know, poor Al Gamble suddenly having not a good afternoon when Spock punches him. Now, Spock was a Vulcan, that could quite easily have cracked 3 or 4 ribs. He seems to be okay by the end of it, but this helps Batel just bring the pain intensity down a little bit. And I like this, using the tools in your arsenal really works. We do get Spock screaming, and that's fine. I've discussed the kind of overt shows of emotion and kind of reactions. You know, it works in the moment. There was just one thing though, you know, I experienced something. Was it Gorn? Down. It was hardly a tribble, was it? We then have a briefing. I like the scene a lot. There is one thing, and I'm not gonna lie, part of this down comes from Ellie. It's in our what the hell reaction video. Not my favorite hair, Una. It's a bit distracting. That's a down. But in this briefing, I do like that we go around the room. We get Martin Quinn here as Scotty. There's a joke about Pelia hates attending these things. She sent him instead. That's an up because I'm really enjoying Martin Quinn as part of this cast. But we start to really see the problem of Ortegas. In theory, nothing she says is wrong in this. She presents other options for plans, which is, as Una says, it's exactly what she was asked to do. She says that she can warp them into the planet's atmosphere, get a transporter lock, because at this point, Pike and Mbenga are overdue for checking in, beam them out and get them out of there, all without the Klingons discovering them. She is very confident that she can do this. The fact that she hasn't done it before is probably one of the things going against her, that no matter how good we know Erica is, in these kind of situations, you want to be able to lead with, such as the time I did this before, you know, and we don't have that here. Scotty says, look, you scrape the thermosphere and the bottom of our ship turns to cabbage, which is such a wonderful image, by the way. But he also says, but it is doable. Spock also raises the issue that once they drop out of warp so quickly, it would be hard to establish a transporter lock, whereas Scotty counters respectfully with, you could do it, you just have to be really, really fast. It sort of comes down to, have the Klingons discovered us or not? Una asks Uhura, who says there is nothing on comms to suggest that they have. I was thinking for a moment that I might give it down to Ortegas sort of snapping at Uhura here, because Una rules against her plan. They're going to stick with Spock's, which is they're going to slowly travel in. It's going to take them about 4 hours. They reckon they have enough confidence in Pike and Mbenga that they can last 4 hours. It'll be fine. Uhura, she's not doing anything wrong. She's doing exactly what Ortegas is doing, and you know, okay, I've done the chatter, there's no one there. And Ortega snaps at her, and I thought, was it a down? And I think, no, it's not a down, although it annoys me, but it's part of Ortegas' arc in this episode, because we are so clearly shown that this gets people's backs up. Uhura, you just see the reaction on her face, but as everyone leaves the ready room, La'an and Una stay behind. And La'an straight away going, are we going to discuss Lieutenant Ortegas? It's very professional, it's very straight away, and it's an up from me. They say something that made me laugh. You know, was she back too soon? Well, she passed her psych eval. When has that ever meant a single thing in Star Trek? You passed your psych eval? Yeah, that means nothing. Nothing. How many PTSD officers have we seen? There was one thing that I thought was just over the line, and it was, La'an is just like, you know, look, you know, she's been rude before, but she's never been insubordinate. And Una effectively goes, you know, she's been through a lot. You know. Just felt a bit unnecessary. That was a down from me. Down on the planet, Pike and Mbenga have gotten away from the Klingons. They go down to the bottom of the research facility. And I have a few things sort of quickly on this one. The first I'm going to say is the Klingons, Baitha, who we learn her name to be, says, you know, they say no one ever comes back from there. And I was this close to downing that because I was going to say, who says that? You know, well, who's come back from there to say it? Look, you could have been part of an escaping party. All of your mates went down there, none of them came back. So all right, I'm going to allow that one. It's a bit on the nose, but sure listen, it's fine. Down in the basement, they sort of dance around. Pike is the one who says, they sound like zombies. And Mbenga says, right, here's what happened, is that effectively it's a crop issue gone wrong. The Chimera blossom, parts of this were combined with wheat crops, which then were combined with perennial moss, makes everything grow so powerfully. It's brilliant, it's gonna be great for colonists, it's wonderful. However, that moss, it infected the scientists and then Klingons who arrived as well after, well, the Klingons invaded, basically all of the safety protocols thrown up into the air, everyone got infected, bad times for all. I think it's from The Last of Us 2. Listen, there's some nods to some zombie franchises here, I won't lie. One thing I do want to really highlight is when Pike says, all right, as I understand it, they sound like zombies. And Mbenga goes, don't call them zombies. They were scientists once. Up. Because, you know, don't other them. Don't make them into these monsters. They were people once. And I like that a lot. However, I have to down how they came about the zombies in this episode. So obviously they wanted to write a zombie episode. I love zombies. I'm so on board. I love zombie movies. Actually recently just did a rewatch of the George A. Romero ones, which were quite timely for this, as it turns out. So no issue with including zombies in Star Trek, obviously, and also not the first time they've done that either. But it was moss that wants to devour everything else. Okay, but then, you know, it's turned into the running, biting, chomping zombie things. Just kind of a little bit over-reliance on tropes, and the explanation they've given is a bit throwaway. So for me, how we got our zombies was a bit like, listen, they're zombies, what more do you want? You know what I mean? Don't worry about it, don't overcomplicate it. The reason they've done it this way, of course, is because we need to understand why they're there in the first place. And Pike, you're a little bit slow on the uptake, so it's a down from me when he's asking such questions as, why would you need this for Batel? That I've no issue with. What do you want to hybridize her with? Well, obviously the Gorn. You know what I mean? Anson Mount is brilliant in this scene. Like, the acting is fantastic, except don't take off your bag, you twit. You've got a flower in there, but sure, listen. He's emoting. He's great in this. But Pike is just a little bit slow here, and he's a little bit argumentative in everything else that's going on. And Mbenga really has to remind him, this is her only shot at survival. This has to happen. So, you know, it's a down for me, kind of, you're arguing a moot point. You know, you're only there for this. You can't really say no at this point. And the fact that it's her choice, I will absolutely give credit to the fact that they do take time to highlight, look, it was her decision. It's not your call at the end of the day. And they come back to this later on as well. It's a bit of a muddled scene. I'll be honest, I don't love how we got the zombies. I do like the fact that there are zombies. I also like that we're not supposed to call them zombies. I don't like that Pike was a bit slow here. I like that he sort of has to accept things. And then we sort of get the next storyline that comes in instead. The remaining Klingons effectively save Pike and Mbenga once a bunch of zombies overflow their situation. And yeah, yay, friendly, brilliant, everyone's happy. Okay, she's just shot her own guard because he got bitten by a zombie. Another kind of zombie movie trope, which I quite like. Once you're bit, you're bit. I like that. You know, there's no kind of waiting around. Of course, the only way to signal the Enterprise is to get to the roof. So everyone who goes down there, nobody comes back. That roof was a bit easy to get to, wasn't it? Down. There is a again, such a great episode for things that look. J.D. Dickinson's design of the Klingon Raider gets a beautiful highlight here as it comes up and over the edge of the building and lands just there. That's an absolute up from me. I wasn't crazy about the fluttering wings. It was a bit ornithopter for me, but also I know the Klingon Raider it actually predates Dune, this version of Dune, much older. Please don't get me wrong. But yeah, it was a bit ornithopter. But I am absolutely splitting hairs. Gorgeous design, and nice to see it in this kind of relief as well. I've said before on other episodes, the first couple of seasons of Discovery, I don't know if they were maybe still figuring out the way that they wanted to depict what Star Trek looks like. When I say things like, it looked like there was a filter on it, I don't want to be disrespectful. I just think that it's now much more HD than it was. So we get to see that design that was introduced in season 1 of Discovery in beautifully sharp relief here. They're able to activate this sort of, very handily placed force field generator. So it's the three of them standing there. Pike says, right, okay, well, if we just distract those zombies, we can run towards your shuttle. And I kind of like how Baitha, she holsters her weapon, picks up her knife, and just stabs him in the leg. He is so inconsequential for her plan. She doesn't even speak to him at this point. He kind of goes, oh, I walked into that one. And be like, did you? I kind of like how this is going. Not that I like to see him stabbed, but this is between Baitha and M'Benga. And here we go. Baitha isn't there by chance. She was following M'Benga. She was following him because of the Viridium tracker that the Rongovian placed in his drink at the end of Wedding Bell Blues. Don't eat the olives. So, taken up for the Viridium patch. Stick around for cetacean observations, because I've got things to say. My problem with this episode, I mentioned that it's taken me a couple of watches. My problem was, I don't like that so soon after the mystery of Under the Cloak of War and M'Benga's murder wall, they have definitively answered what happened. Now, bear with me, because I know there's even wiggle room in that. Under the Cloak of War is both 2 years ago in the real world, but it's also something like 4 episodes ago, well, 4 or 5 episodes ago in the show. It's not long. Therefore, it seems like they've sort of rushed to address this. Having Baitha chase M'Benga down, because she feels he stole her honor, which I will discuss now. I don't have any issue with that. It's the fact that here, M'Benga not only explicitly confirms that yes, he did willingly and knowingly kill Ambassador Dakra, thus ridding us of any uncertainty in the topic. He says the critical thing, and I would do it again. That to me changes the ending of Under the Cloak of War. I thought what was powerful about that was we don't know. It was a mystery to this character. Was he so affected by what happened that he could not leave it in the past? That when presented with an opportunity, he took revenge. And we are told that yes, he has done that. And that is now something that is a part of that character going forwards. So whatever M'Benga does going forwards, we must now know that that is part of the character's journey, the character's build-up, the character's decision-making. And to me, I feel there's too much weight to place on it. Because again, by the episode's end, I'm sort of jumping forward slightly, and how they get around not revealing this to anyone else is Pike says, I had a knife to my throat, you told a story to save my life. And they sort of nod, and with a sort of a nod and a wink, they'll leave it at that. Of course, we know that that's not entirely the truth. It will be interesting to me if they do anything with this going forward. As it stands, the only people left alive to tell the story are Pike and M'Benga. And give it a few years, Pike probably won't be telling anyone. So is this something that will affect M'Benga's journey going forward? Or is this something that was needed for a moment in the episode and therefore they confirmed it and that was that? For me, it's a down. I still think it's a down. I really, really, really like how they play the scene. Babs Olusomakan, what an up. Easily an up for this episode. He is brilliant, and the way that he plays that anger as well, I think is fantastic. I'm just concerned about what they're going to do with it going forward, if anything, because I now feel it is something you need to address going forward. Up over the planet, they're trying to pilot their way through the dust cloud at 1/6 impulse. That's important. So they do, so they can swing around, and we get just those shots. The Klingon ship and the Enterprise, I'm a simple man, take another up. And then there is additional, although it looks like it's going well, there's additional dust forming. So Spock says we're going to have to bring it down to 1/8 impulse, which is going to adjust our estimate. Instead of taking 4 hours to get to Kenfori, it's going to take 8 hours. They're doing all this to remain outside of the Klingon sensor sweep. So Erica slows down, but then boom, the alarm goes off. Uh-oh, they've discovered us. This is a bit of a problem. Down on the planet, Baitha explains why she's been chasing Mbenga, which is because Dakra was seen as a traitor. She was going to kill her father to return her house to glory. However, because her father is now dead and Mbenga's the one responsible, she never had that chance, which means, she has no honor. Fighting and killing Mbenga will be her way of retrieving that honor, which is a very Klingon thing to do, to be fair. She agrees to agrees as if she was giving anyone a choice. There's gonna be ritual combat. I do like, however, which is something I haven't seen before, where she takes out the fabric that she says has the blood of her father on it, thus tying their hands together with a bit of room in between them. They both have a knife. They face each other and there is no holding back. She does manage to get some blood from him, but he gets some blood from her. He wins the fight and he spares her. And it's a very human thing to do, but it is unfortunately the antithesis of a Klingon thing to do. By doing so, she feels he has doomed her to dishonor. Her life has no meaning. There's nothing she can do. But there is one thing, and that thing is to answer the question of how do you get them off the surface, how do you do it without bringing her with them, and how do you also do something cool with these zombies? There really was, maybe not the exact way they end it, but there's kind of one way they were going to come to the end of this episode, and that is she's going to sacrifice herself. It's a funny one because I don't believe for a second she's sacrificing herself to save them. It's not about saving them. It's all about giving up her own life to reclaim her own honor. Quite frankly, they're lucky. She doesn't need them both to live. And so that's what they do, because in the heat of the fight, a knife got lodged in the field generator, which means the force field is coming down. In the best Colonel Rhodes of it all, she says, "Choke on me." She unsheaths a kick-ass Klingon whip, which, by the way, taken up. I thought that was pretty cool, so probably to all the BDSM viewers of this episode as well, and takes on these zombies. It's grim. They overpower her, they devour her. But Pike and Mbenga get out of there. They have a short exchange about she will know she died with honor, and we will know she died with honor, before they're beamed away, because back on the Enterprise, they have gone with Erica's plan. They warp into the atmosphere. There's, a couple of moments where they lose some artificial gravity. They're floating in air. Scotty is still able to beam Pike and Mbenga out of there, and they're able to reclaim their orbit. They get up, the Klingons swing around. It's all very tense. They fire a torpedo, but it's grand. The Enterprise is out of there. Crisis pretty much averted. In sickbay, Mbenga's patching up Pike's leg, and they have that quick exchange there. If we put aside, I've said my bit on whether or not I think they should have resolved what happened, and they have their discussion. They're, not an official mission, no official report, and all right, okay, they get around the legal side of things there. Tying back into the fact that Pike and Mbenga are the friends that they are, is how I think this scene works. Pike says, "You've saved my life," and Mbenga's understandably curious as to, is this going to affect anything going forward? And we're certainly left with the impression that, as far as Pike is concerned, the matter is settled. We'll see. But I will say, this scene between them isn't up from me. There's a great line, "You're not a monster, just a man." And that works for me. In the ready room, Ortegas walks in and says, "Hey, what's up? You wanted to talk? Take a seat, Lieutenant," says Una. And the whole mood just changes in an instant. This feels official. Straight away, Una just goes, "At this exact moment, I gave the order to drop to a certain speed. You took us up to 1/7, thus we were discovered by the Klingons." Ortega says, "I was trying to account for various debris. My finger slipped. I made a mistake." To which Una counters with, "Other people make mistakes. You don't." There's no arguing it. Ortegas doesn't sit there and say, I didn't. She just says, "You were going to leave Pike and Mbenga down there on the planet." To which Una says, And although they didn't have this information at the time, Una says they were about to escape on a shuttle, which means you endangered the entire ship for no reason, and it wasn't your call to make. Not only is this an up, but a Latinum up of the week is for all that I love that it's a family on board this ship and how they interact and how well all of the different cast play against each other. There is a chain of command, and Rebecca Romijn is one of the best people in recent Star Trek for walking those two lines. Una is a brilliant character because she is able to completely read Ortegas the riot act without raising her voice and without losing any kind of composure, to the point where Ortega's like, you can tell she's not happy, but she doesn't argue. She knows what she did, and she knows she messed up, and she also knows how lucky she is, because as she's leaving that ready room, Una says, this cannot happen again, you understand that, right? And Ortega says yes. Crucial exchange. Crucial exchange. And also, I mean, if you haven't guessed how I feel about it already, what an Ortegas episode. Excellent. This is what more Ortegas is what we've been crying for. And look, if this is the direction they're taking her character in this season, just make it compelling. Like this episode. This was handled so well. Melissa Navia nailing it in this episode. What a scene. Our last scene of the episode, the sort of inevitable Pike and Batel, not so much getting into it, but Pike, they're ready to express his feelings again, and some out brilliant in this episode, but Melanie Scrofano's delivery of, I didn't have time to worry about how my dying hurt your feelings. Up. Right, folks, okay. Will you join me, please? That's Citation Observations. Now, we get lots of nods to Klingon things in this episode. Of course, the Klingon emblem on beautiful show there as they get the warning while they're flying toward Kenfori. This, the Easter egg back to Spock and Muck. All Mbenga wants to do is go fishing, the lake being perfect for fly fishing. The EM field, as I discussed, kind of a version of the cloaking device, Schrodinger's cloaking device, if you will. That Klingon raider that was introduced back in Star Trek Discovery as well, making a beautiful, beautiful return here. As the Klingons walk into the building, those spiked boots, which is, they were introduced back in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. But the music cue that plays there, very reminiscent of Cliff Idleman's score from Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. I love Nami Malimad's score for Strange New Worlds. The Klingon tricorder, versions of which we saw in Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4. We shoot first, as I discussed earlier, definitely building on the Vulcan Hello and the Battle of the Binary Stars. Spock talking about regulating pain through meditation. We've seen examples of that throughout Star Trek, particularly with T'Pol back in Enterprise as well. Let's talk about the zombies of the whole thing. There is certainly more than a few passing nods to things like The Last of Us here. The moss here sort of, standing in for the cordyceps of The Last of Us. But there's also huge references to George A. Romero's Of the Dead series. So straight away, let's look at Dawn of the Dead, which is one of the seminal movies from the zombie genre of all time. Shuttle to Kenfori. Kenfori played one of the leads in Dawn of the Dead and also has a cameo appearance in the remake of Dawn of the Dead that was directed by Zack Snyder with the script by James Gunn. It was Kenfori who uttered one of the most iconic lines in horror regarding zombies. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Naming the planet after him was as much of a nod as to what was coming, if anything else. There's also, jumping forward to Baitha's death scene, and a massive nod to Day of the Dead, the sequel to, the original sequel to Dawn of the Dead. Captain Rhodes' death scene, the iconic choke on it, when she says, choke on me. Oh, there's something there for everyone in these episodes. I just love it. Even the fact that so much takes place on the roof of the building, again, very evocative of things like Dawn of the Dead, the roof of the shopping mall as well. There's a close-up at one point of a Zombolian, which I really liked. The talk of the Viridium tracker that Baitha had effectively spiked Mbenga with. Well, how did Spock find Kirk and McCoy in Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country? With a Viridium patch on Kirk's shoulder. Baitha says that she was subject to discommendation, which was of course originally introduced in Sins of the Father in the Next Generation. Baitha has a daktang with her family crest on it. We saw that in the Next Generation episode Firstborn, where the daktang with the family crest is what gave it away to the fact that Alexander from the future had come back in time. When they were having the ritual fight and they were wrapping the fabric against their hands, was anyone else thinking of Michael Jackson's music video to Beat It? Just me? Mbenga says that she will be welcomed in Sto-vo-kor, which of course we know is Klingon heaven. And then one last thing, it's not so much an Easter egg, but it's kind of a trope that comes up an awful lot. When Pike stabs one of the Klingons through the mouth, blood comes through and splatters on our screen, like the lens. Down. Don't break the fourth wall. And that is everything. Thank you so much everyone for watching along. There is a lot to dissect in this episode and I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this ups and downs as well. And thank you so much to the wonderful Eddie who has edited this. We've thrown him in at the deep end because that's what we do. We're monsters. Thank you so much everyone. Please make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the channel. Like I say, if you want to get some TrekCulture merch, you can do so at the link below. Thank you so much everyone who already has. I will see some of you possibly in person if you're going to trek to Vegas there in a couple of weeks. So looking forward, come up and say hi, that would be wonderful. But I will definitely see you next week for the ups and downs for episode 4. Until then, look after yourself, live long and prosper. Make sure you're following us on all the socials at TrekCulture, at TrekCulture YT. We're not hard to find. I will talk to you soon. Thanks very much.